It is the technology show where we translate geek into regular speak one day late this week. So I did put up a little disclaimer yesterday saying that I wasn't going to do the show because I wanted to wait for the Apple event, which was, I think it's 3 o'clock in the morning our time. So there was no way I would have the insights. And it's probably a good thing because a lot of the things that I was expecting or hoping to see didn't manifest. So I might have had a whole show talking about all the cool things that are coming that didn't actually come. But be that as it may, I'm very, very lucky that my friend Alex has managed or agreed to join me. And he was up early, had to get articles out for IT Wire. So I'm really happy that Alex was able to join me today because arguably he's either number one or number two Apple fan in Australia anyway. And maybe after today's show, we'll get that number sorted. So let's bring Alex in. Hello, sir. How are you?
G'day. I'm good. I'm
I'm
good.
going to do
How's
that
it?
and we can do the comparison between the rings just to see who really
Yeah.
did get.
Yeah. Well, I went to
No, I
bed at
saw your
about
tweets.
1 a.m. and then got up at 2:45. I was watching, from 3, and it went for about an hour and a half, and then I was writing articles and getting it up. But I thought it was great. But then I usually do think that Apple launches are great. But we can debate as to why I think it's great and see what you think about it.
So I'll start off by saying, and I did say it as you heard in the intro, right? Arguably, between you and me, we're number one and two fanboys in this place. Or at least some of the people I know. And I
Yeah.
think often I've given you the number one pole position because, well, one, I mean, it's your day job all day and all night writing, hence tweeting and writing articles before most people were coming out of their dream state. So, and today I think I'll have to give you the number one again. Um, I wasn't blown away. I mean, the name of the event was Far Out. It was far out of my expectations. There were good things, and this is the thing with Apple. They always do enough to excite you. Sometimes they go way beyond excitement, and that's just so that the Android users can jump on and go, "Whoa, we've had that for 10 years," or "We can do that." But I don't think I needed to go that far to find enthusiasm on today's or yesterday's announcement or the announcement. And as always, I always put some slides up. So I thought I'd put some visuals up for the people that are watching, and we can talk through it as well. So
Sure.
let's go into share screen and quickly do that and click here and go here. So I'm going to start. I'm going to keep the discussion between you and me in the flow that they announce the things, because I think that way also
Sure.
from your notes, from your mindset as well. And as I think it's just because both of us are extremely tired, it's probably easier. So this was no surprise. We did expect Watch Series 8 to be announced. It was announced. I have to say, it looks like a really nice device. Slightly bigger screen, slightly narrower borders, which is what they do on each iteration. They've added in some of the cool features. Now, what was interesting, there was a lot of focus on women's health. Now, that's not a bad thing. In fact, that's a good thing because, and if you're married, happy wife, happy life, right? So if you have a girlfriend and, she's happy, you're happy. But the health aspects about it was more about their cycle and the measuring of their cycle and ovulation. And they used it as a very good way to introduce the temperature sensor that's now been included into the watch. Now, for anyone that reads the summaries of these events, they might actually skim through the watch, right? Because they go, oh, well, that was about female health, and clearly I never have to worry about my ovulation, so I'm going to go past it. But temperature is quite an important thing, especially when you're sleeping and what it can measure and the warning signs. What was your take on Watch 8? And I know you're going to be getting one soon, so but what was your thinking?
Well, Watch 8 is sort of more or less an incremental upgrade over Watch 7. The screen sizes are the same. It looks to be exactly the same as the Watch 7. I think it has the same sort of system in chip package. The chip itself, I don't know if that's actually been
No,
increased.
I think
I don't
it's the
know if
same.
I don't know if there's any increases in storage. I mean, the biggest change seems to be a dual temperature sensor, one on the top and one on the
Yeah,
bottom, and that's
yeah,
so that the outside temperature isn't being overly influencing the inside temperature. And, whilst, people were talking about this sensor saying that, well, it might help you to detect whether you've got a fever or some other health problems, but Apple focused very much on ovulation, so that people can, if they're trying to get pregnant, they can have that help them. And they can also see that information recorded on their phones in the Apple Health app.
Yeah.
So that really appeared to be the only change to
Well, I wanted
Apple
to
Watch
ask you this
Series 8.
because I couldn't remember on 7, and quite honestly, I was just too tired to actually Google it. Did 7 have crash detection?
No, well, that's the other big thing,
Right,
crash
because that
detection.
was
But
the one thing that I actually stood up and thought, okay, well,
sorry, yeah,
there's innovation, right?
yeah. Well, and there they put an improved 3-axis gyroscope and something else. There's two things in there with crash detection. So if there's a heavy hit in an accident, then it will automatically call the emergency services or your friends and other people. So yes, that
That
and
was big.
the
That was big,
yeah.
yeah.
And
I
Apple
must say,
says they hope you'll never need to use it.
yeah, I really like the way they did the voiceover. And so, the one thing about whether you're a fan or you're not, you cannot take away from the way Apple presents their videos, just their way generally. That is what makes Apple Apple. But the way they worded it, so if you hadn't seen the show, it was they had a car that was in a crash through a simulator, obviously, or simulated environment. It was a real car, and they said our new feature, which we hope and pray you never have to use. And I just thought that was a nice personal touch. They've gone and put all this money into research and development. They've made this product knowing and hoping and praying that you never use it, which can't be said for a lot of other companies, right? They spend time developing stuff that they want you to use.
Yeah.
But for from a point where crash detection, we've just had a horrific incident here in Australia with that 18-year-old that with the accident and 5 kids were killed. Would it have made a difference if any of them had been wearing the watch and a notification had got sent out to the emergency services? Maybe not. I don't know how bad the impact was, if they died instantaneously and so on. But the point is that there are car crashes and there have been car crashes where people didn't necessarily die straight away, and that golden hour that they talk about, of the emergency services coming to get you and get you to a hospital, that would now be expedited 10 or 15 fold because your watch is going to send out that location, emergency, you're in trouble, you can't answer, you can't do anything. It kind of, in the triage, it moves you right up to the top of the list. So, that was something really impressive. And like I said at the beginning of the show, there's always things that intrigue and make you want to come back for more with Apple.
The thing is that Apple has to have a new version every year. Well, they don't have to have it, but they do.
No, but they do.
And so the Series 8, already the Series 7 processor, which was basically the same as the Series 6, it was already the fastest. In the Android world, Qualcomm sort of stuck with its Qualcomm watch chip for a few years, and there was no real development. Samsung and Google are now developing faster chips, and Samsung has started using Wear OS, and Apple and Google is going to launch the Pixel Watch
I'm very keen to see
October
that
the
watch.
7th. Yeah.
But
so there are two things: the ovulation and the temperature sensor, and we'll hopefully see other apps that come out and enable some of the other health features that temperature sensor can bring, and of course crash detection. There were stories of people who've been in crashes that were able to use the cellular capability of the watch to call for help. But this is, of course, if you are knocked
if you're
out
able to, though, like you've still got to go hit the emergency button on your watch. And I use my watch for a lot of things. It's not just because I like Apple and I have a gimmick on my arm, right? I do use them. Often I've left my phone upstairs. My phone rings. I pick up the call. I can hand off back to the phone if I need to on my MacBook. But just general notifications. Or I've started playing like paddle again and tennis, and I can record the workout. It goes into my health rings, which gives me better updates on my Welltory app, which is a health and wellness app. So the watch is a critical piece of my life, and I really enjoy it.
But I don't think the Series
impressed.
8 is really the one that wants you to be excited about. There's the Apple Watch SE, which in Australia is $20 cheaper than the previous model from 2020, but it's got the same, chip basically it's the same chip for the last 2 or 3 years.
I think they'll do very well with the SE. It's a good positioning. And for
Well,
kids that
the
don't,
positioning, for that is for the kids, so that if they're too young to get a telephone,
phone.
they can have
Yep.
the watch, and they can
Yep.
still message their parents. They can put it into school time mode. You can pay $99, I think, for an entire year of unlimited calling and texting with a third-party provider. That
Yep.
I forget what it's called, True Global or something. There's a
few of
provider
them.
you can use. Yeah,
Yep.
and that's right. But the real star of the show was the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, this
Correct. So
is
let's go back to I found one of the pictures that I really liked, which was this one. Because just the shape from the side. So for all those that didn't see the show, and hopefully you're just finding out about it now on the technology show, the Watch Ultra is a really special piece of kit. This is something that was worth actually watching the show for. So it's designed for outdoor, rugged, extreme sport, extreme venturers, all the extreme things, everything that I'm not. I still want one, but it's definitely wasn't built for me. Now, unfortunately, I didn't put a picture of the other side, because what it has that's very different, besides the shape, you can see how they've protected the glass. On the other side of the watch is a dedicated button that you can use for just anything you want. You can actually it's called a quick function button or something like that, action button. And you can set it that, so if you're hiking and you need to know altitude or oxygen levels, you've already pre-programmed that app. You just touch the button and the information comes up. No scrolling, no looking for anything. They've also designed it that the whole watch works screen, buttons, action button, bevel, everything with gloves. And that's quite important as well for extreme sports. But the big thing, Alex, and again, I don't do any of these things, but the big thing is that this is certified for diving, as in scuba diving. It's a certified dive watch. So you can now wear your watch. So for anyone that dives, and I've dabbled in it, by no means am I an open water diver, but for anyone that dives, you have to have a dive computer. It's like a critical part of of going underwater, right? And that's an expensive thing. You can now have a watch that looks like a watch, functions like a watch. It's a good looking watch, but you can dive with it as well. That's a huge saving. So for anyone that's looking at getting into diving alone, this would be the device to look at.
absolutely. Well, it's a 49 millimeter screen, so it's 1.92 inches. I did a conversion from 49 millimeters to inches, so bigger screen. On the side there, that section over here, there's actually a little bit of metal that protrudes to make it difficult to break off the crown, and it also makes it easy for you to touch that side button. And so they've got more performant microphones. So even if you're in a blizzard, you can still be heard. There's two types of GPS inside, not just the one.
That's right.
So that when you're running marathons, especially in busy cities, you can get the most accurate GPS reading. It's 36 hours of battery life coming as standard, up to 60 hours with the new low power mode, which still gives you all of the different GPS and a lot of the features that you need. So you can go for days without having to worry about charging it. It's $1,299 in Australia. There's only cellular models. You cannot buy it without cellular.
Yeah.
And there's a new watch face that takes advantage.
You need it when you
you need
somewhere.
it, yeah.
You need.
But there's a new watch face that takes, gives you compasses, and watch the video online, but it's got more complications than ever. And if you push the crown forward, it goes into that red light mode, which is very easy on the eyes in the dark, very easy to see. So, this is Apple called it a new expression of Apple Watch, and they said they've been working on it for years.
And
Siri, well, because I'm moving it around. If you lift it up,
I do the same. I'm talking all the time. My watch goes.
That's it. So this is a new expression of Apple Watch, and it is the one that you're going to want, whether or not. It'll be a fashion statement. Titanium, sapphire glass, 100 meters water resistance as opposed to the 50 meters, and unlike all the other watches, especially some of the other fitness watches that aren't really smart watches, there are a stack of apps. And the video showed this gentleman, I forget, Ty, so I'm not a diver, but he was the guy basically that is the
Oh, that was from
total
the
expert.
Oceanic app, which does all the measurements and all
Yeah,
that
well,
as
it's from
well.
this guy from a company called Heiss or Hughes
Yeah.
or something like that, and he's the expert on diving, and so he's obviously worked with Apple to create this app. And they even had 3 new bands. One was an ocean band that had
I was
little
about to
holes
say
through it.
the bands, the thought that went into that as well. It was
Yeah,
brilliant.
well, there's a band for people who are adventurers and explorers where it clips in. There's a
Yep.
band for people who are athletes where it velcros in, and there's a band for divers where it's got
It
these holes through the
expands and
band.
also it clips over a wetsuit as well. So you can
Yeah,
expand it just to fit over the wet. In fact, the picture that I had up was the one for the wetsuit with the holes in it. It was the
mm,
it's expandable rubber. It's just that, and the other feature that they had on there, and again, I don't do any of these type of sports, but it wasn't designed for me, which is fine. I'd probably still want to wear one. It had way back on it. So if you did do like
yes,
extreme outdoor, I think they call it adventuring, when you go into uncharted areas, the compass is obviously your best friend, but you could put waypoints on your compass. But by itself, without you doing anything, it's already doing a way back and rolling itself back. That if for some reason you got yourself totally lost, you just hit the button and it will actually show you the route that you've come to get to that point, how you've
yeah.
turned, where you've tacked everything, and you can
And,
work your way back.
for people who go to the Blue Mountains, for example, in New South Wales and get lost, we hear about that every year. I
Yep,
mean,
yep,
this feature automatically switches on when you
correct.
lose cellular coverage. So, and I think that's something that you can do on, I think, the Apple Watch Series 8 as well. I've got to double check that. But
I'm
certainly
not sure about that if
now,
that was on there on way back, but your
I'll have
phone
to
would
have a
do
look.
that.
I think it is, but I could be wrong. But Samsung launched. I mean, Samsung and others know they sealed the same rumors that we do, and so Apple was, there were rumors that there would be an Apple Watch Pro. So what did
Yeah,
Samsung do? They launched the Samsung Watch 5 Pro with a bigger screen and
yeah.
many of the same sort of features, but without the extreme ruggedability that ruggedness that Apple has. And so Apple didn't just call it Apple Watch Pro; they called it Apple Watch Ultra.
Ultra. Yeah. Well, and that's the Apple marketing and branding machine, right?
At work,
So
yeah.
I must say, I was really, really when I saw the rumor mills and there was a leak of a watch cover or watch face that one of the manufacturers is making that
Which I
showed the
saw a few
extra
days ago.
button,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, so you're gonna get like voice dictation or. And then I thought, no, well, why would you do that? You can just speak to Siri. I was trying to work out what that button would do.
Mm,
I didn't think the quick launch.
yeah.
Now Samsung used to put that on all their phones as well. They had that dedicated, they turned into Bixby or whatever their assistant was, and
Yeah.
then eventually that didn't work, so they just made it a dedicated button for you to do what you wanted, and you could do one push for one thing and two pushes for another. So that was really good and innovative on the phone. But on the watch, and Alex, I've been with you many times, and you've showed people when you see that they're wearing an Apple Watch, you go up to them, you go, "Do you know how to get rid of all those icons and make it a list?" And they don't, and you show them, and my watch is set like that as well. I love that
Mm.
feature,
Well, Apple
but
now asks
you
you
have to
that when you
scroll.
update. Yeah.
But when
You
you're in
have
a
to scroll. You've got to
situation
scroll.
and
Yeah.
you're running out of oxygen and you're now scrolling to O, you might actually run out of breath. So you could have that set straight away for an oxygen or warning alert button or whatever these extreme sports people do. And there it is.
Yeah.
So I have to say that the watch team at Apple, their dedicated group, 15 out of 10 on this one. I mean, this
Yeah.
was kind of for me what salvaged the whole event. When I looked at this, I thought, wow, this was
Yeah.
really good innovation.
Well,
So
just quickly on that, if you go to youtube.com/Apple, you can watch all the videos. They've got shorter videos and longer videos. I would suggest don't watch anyone's cut down videos. Watch the full hour and a half keynote.
you can
But there's
watch
a
on
great
Safari
video
as
there.
well. It's there on Safari as well if if
Yes,
you've got a Mac.
yeah, if you go into Apple's website. But if you just go to youtube.com/Apple, they've got all the other videos there that they showed inside the keynote. And there's one video goes for 3 or 4 minutes, which is a whole bunch of people who have been saved by the current generations of Apple Watch,
Oh yes, that
from
was good.
atrial fibrillation, from car accidents, wherever it might be. And so, you don't need a brand new Apple Watch to enjoy a lot of these features. And one of the
Yep.
biggest markets for Apple is all of the refurbished and secondhand. There's going to be now millions of watches and phones that are going to be passed down to family members, traded in, sold on Gumtree, and that just expands the Apple universe of customers and
They
people
were
who are
actually quite
future
cheeky about
upgraders.
that. They keep showing you how everything's now 100% recycled material, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And the one lady came on, she was like, if you've got an old phone lying in your drawer, watch, whatever, don't leave it there. Take the impact off the earth, send it into us. And I'm thinking, no, mate, I'm going to sell it. I'm not sending you
Well,
nothing.
no, but what they're talking about is
Yeah,
phones
they'll
that are
trade
just
it
too
in.
old. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well, I mean, the thing is, if you
But
try and
even
take
if
an
it's too old,
iPhone
I'm still going
4,
to sell it. I'm not going to send it to Apple.
well, if you take, but somebody eventually, because I mean, an iPhone 4 is, unless you're playing, old games that have been taken off the App Store, it's useless, right? You're not going to get, what are you going to get, $10 for it? I mean, who's going to give you anything for it?
Okay,
Maybe
so
in 20 years
let's
when
call
it's
you
the
out on
last one.
this. If we look at your fancy shelf behind you, is your iPhone 4 still there?
Yeah, I still have it. Yeah, I haven't
There we
returned it.
go.
I've still got the original iPhone. Well, because I'm keeping those. But
I
I actually
started
have
with-
given iPhone 5C. My sister had one that I gave her some years ago, and at the time I wasn't near an Apple store, so I took it to a Vodafone store, and they recycled it via Mobile Muster. I mean, Mobile Muster has been around for 20 years, and I've taken many of these older phones that I probably could have, tried to sell on eBay, just donated back so they can recover those materials. Otherwise, a lot of those things end up in landfills, and that's not helping anybody. So, but look, if you want to sell it. But if you don't want to bother with all that, Apple will take it. I mean, a lot of companies never used to take anything back. Now that's become a thing. Now they'll happily take it. I mean, I've got some old, very old
profitable
MacBooks
as well, right? I mean, the gold that they take out and repurpose.
It is, but Apple has to accept it at its store. Then they've got to ship it to wherever they're shipping it. They've got to then have a robot that pulls it all apart. Then they've got to send those bits and pieces to somewhere else. I mean, it's the reason why a lot of recycling doesn't happen is because it's cheaper to make new bottles out of the raw materials than it is to recycle. So this is costing companies a lot of money to do this, and it's the ecological thing to do. It's a smart thing to do. So I don't think Apple's making money out of this. It's costing them money, but it's the right thing to do.
Agreed. Right, so next up on the list was the new AirPods Pro 2. I just like that image. They don't look like that. I would imagine they did. That would be awesome. But I just, all the inner workings, I thought that was quite cool, but that's what they look like. The one thing they announced was that you now can get an XS ear cup at the end, because some people are still battling to use them with just small, medium, large. So now there's an extra, and also extra small makes sense for kids, right? For the younger generation, if you really got small ears, then the XS makes sense. Alex,
the one thing Apple hasn't done
there. This over to you for the simple basis that I've never owned a pair of AirPods ever, and I don't use them. I use Jabras and I use JLabs. Those are my two weapons of choice.
Well, look, I can tell you all about it. So for me, when I first got the AirPods Pro, it was hurting the bottom part of my ear called the antitragus, and I just didn't get used to it.
Those are the solid ones, They didn't have
well, the AirPods Pro does have the silicon.
The Pro, sorry, not the AirPods. Right? Yeah, the AirPods was solid.
Yeah.
The
AirPods were solid, but the Pro had the silicon. And for some reason, even though I loved AirPods 1 and 2, these ones, I didn't like them. And so I returned them. But a year later, I bought them because I got the memory foam tips, and it was fine. I actually loved them. And now, strangely, I can wear these ones with these little tips. No problems at all. It's quite easy to do that. So if you've had problems with your ears, memory foam tips usually solve that. But the new ones come with 6 hours of battery life, 30 hours in the case. The case has a little lanyard socket over there. There's a speaker on the bottom of the case, so you can hear Find My. It tells you when it's charging with a sound, tells you when it's flat. The AirPods itself have the H2 chip, which has got twice the noise cancellation, up to twice the noise cancellation. And also with the transparency mode, it is scanning the surrounding audio over 40,000 times a second. So if you're coming across a jackhammer, normally in transparency mode, that is boosting the sound and deafening you. But this is now able to mute that and do all that in real time. So transparency mode is not anywhere near as harsh on your ears if you're going through a busy city. And whilst Apple did have the tapping mechanism on AirPods 1 and 2, they introduced squeezing on the AirPods Pro and also the AirPods 3, so that you could pause play, bring up Siri, or transfer from the noise cancellation to transparency. But one of the things I always wanted them to do was give you the ability to swipe up and down to change the volume. And they've now done that with the AirPods Pro second generation. So there was a lot of rumors that Apple would remove the stems, but Apple doesn't go with whatever the rumors say or whatever their competition does. They do what is
sense because it directs the mic, but also makes it easier to pull it in. Sometimes When I've
Yeah.
put my Jabras or my JLabs in, I touch the button because the button's on the flat part,
Yeah.
and I can turn the call off. And I wasn't trying to do that. So the stem's not a bad thing. I've experienced Apple's audio skills through my phone. You can set the setting that it kills outside or surrounding noise. That was an iOS 15 update, I think,
I
and
think
it works
even
well.
earlier, but yeah.
It might have been earlier, but you could swap down the call and you hit the microphone and
the voice isolation. Yeah. That was iOS 15. Yeah.
When you can have a hairdryer next to you, I mean, you'll hear the hairdryer, but the person on the call that you're speaking to won't. So I know that they're really good at their technology. Now everyone says to me, "You're such a fanboy. How come you don't have AirPods?" I just chose my brand. I enjoyed my Jabras. I've had a lot of different Jabras. I've reviewed a lot of different Jabras, and I've never been upset. And lately, I've been playing with JLabs. The microphone that I use is a JLab. In fact, last week I reviewed the little. I don't know if you saw that, Alex. You'll like this, being that. So these are my latest JLabs that I've been playing with. Now I've taken the hooks off, so they're those ones that go around your ears. But if you look at it, it's got these little. The reason I took the hooks off, there's these little clips, and they clip on my glasses, so I can just do that.
Very nice. Yep.
It's good. Now miss sound. I'm sorry, I need to put that back in quickly. So that I connect it to my Mac. So when I'm saying,
hang on, it hasn't. Just stop. It's still connected to your AirPods. You've got to click a button to.
Right.
There we go.
Back
There we
now.
go. Yeah.
Cool. So what I was saying is, I don't have anything in my ears. I don't have pressure over my head. I can still hear what's going on, but it's loud enough that I can choose not to hear what's going on because I can focus on it. I get 7 hours of battery, so that's more than the AirPods. And that was the one thing I'm surprised that Apple hasn't got that right, that they haven't extended their battery life. And I'm assuming it's because of all the tech that they've put in, right? The noise cancelling, the amplification, and so on. That
the battery's in the stem, so there's only so much space you can have there. They made the stem smaller,
but it's
and I
only
mean
6 hours.
with the air, well, it's longer than the previous AirPods by an hour, and they didn't mention talk time, but I'm assuming talk time is extended as well. But until AirPods came along, you had Bluetooth. There were these ones you could put around your head and put into your ears. But until AirPods came along, nobody could make individual AirPods, individual speakers that could go in that ear and that ear without a cable. Since
I agree.
Apple has introduced that, everyone's done it. It's like the 4-minute mile. Once somebody did it, everybody could do it. And we've got Apple to thank for popularizing that so that everyone's got it. And it's great to see that the ones you have clip onto glasses and do other things. I mean, the amount of innovation we're seeing now is fantastic. But I'll definitely be buying. I've always purchased my own AirPods, so I'll definitely be purchasing the new AirPods Pro.
And as I said, they're not the biggest headset in the world for nothing, right? I mean, they're iconic, and I haven't had a reason not to use them. I've just always found that the brand I've gone with works for me. So I don't.
One other thing, you can charge it with MagSafe, you can charge it with the Apple Watch charger, and you can charge it with the Qi charger, as well as the.
So there, I'm lucky as well. I've got the Belkin 3-in-1, so my watch sits on its own stem. My iPhone sits on it, but at the base is an additional charging area.
You should be able to put
mine there as well.
The case now. You should be able to put the. I'm going to try that with the
you can,
with the new
on
AirPods.
The Belkin. You definitely can on the wireless.
No, but I mean, I'm talking about on the Apple Watch section.
Oh,
if the magnet, because the Apple Watch charger can charge the new AirPods Pro 2nd Gen. So that's cool. I mean, that is all these little things they're thinking of. I mean, it is a shame that Apple doesn't have the wireless charging on the back of the phone that you can put it on there yet, but nobody wants less battery life. That's
I was going to say, I don't want to share my battery life. You can have my food, you can have a sip of my drink, but leave my battery alone, mate. So funny enough, what they didn't mention, talking about charging and connectivity, there was no capitulation from Apple's side with regards to USB-C. We haven't looked at the phone
that's coming
yet.
next year.
Now. I know, but I kind of thought they would have teased or at least referenced it being such a hotspot. So on that note, let's go to the whole main event and the reason of the event, because everything else is ancillary, and that is the new iPhone 14, not Apple 14, and iPhone 14 Plus. Now, if you look
just quickly, you say that it's ancillary, but there are plenty of people out there, like kids who will have a watch and an AirPods, and that's it. They don't have a phone. They don't have a phone
No,
yet.
I know, but
I
I mean,
mean,
from the event point of view in the media and we
yeah,
all
yeah,
know that
sure.
it's the announcement of the next iPhone. Everything else is like bonus,
I know.
but
Yeah.
it's always about the phone. That's the hero. Now, looking at that, it's an iPhone 12, it's an iPhone 13. It looks the same. There's no
Mm.
change. I don't know if the screen is being made bigger than the 13. So
Screen
it's
size is the
exactly
same.
the
Well,
same.
yes
You
and
can use
no.
the same accessories.
No, the back camera array is likely to be bigger because they've got larger sensors, and
Okay,
so you've got larger sensors inside, 2 times more low light capability. So you'll need a new case. You always need a new case. Now here we have the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Plus. So they brought
correct.
back the Plus
Yeah.
designation, and that's the same 6.7-inch screen that was on the Pro Max. So they've gotten rid of the Mini. If you want the Mini, you'll have to go for an iPhone 13 mini, and there are some people that still like that.
Well,
But
I'll get to the iPhone 13 in a second.
mm,
Now, what was interesting is that in America, it's only eSIM. They're not actually doing a SIM
yes,
tray on their
dual
phones.
no dual eSIM. So already the current iPhone 13 Pro has
It's got
dual
one
eSIM.
eSIM.
No, it's got two. The
Is it
current one
two?
has got two eSIM and a SIM card tray. So you can
Okay.
actually have two eSIMs in there right now if you wanted to. And I was surprised to discover that, but it's true. There are
I
two
thought it was
eSIM
one
slots.
and one physical, not two
Well,
and
it
one.
was previously, but with the iPhone 13, it was two
Ah,
eSIMs and one physical. So they already had that. So what they've done is they've gotten rid of the physical SIM slot. Now I suspect the physical SIM slot will stay in Australia, and I know that in Hong Kong,
yes,
for example, they for the 12 and 13, they actually had a dual SIM slot. So when you pull the SIM card slot out,
that's right, because
you
they
put
didn't
two
have the
SIMs on either
eSIM
side.
technology there. They
Well,
were using
I
dual
think the Chinese
SIMs.
government didn't want it
Yeah,
for whatever reason, and also the Chinese are very used to having a mainland, like especially in Hong Kong, a mainland SIM and a Hong Kong SIM. So they've gotten rid of that, and eventually that will be the same for all the iPhones around the world, and it potentially harkens to Apple removing the physical slot altogether in next year's phone for the
which gives
USB-C or
them a
Lightning.
lot of real estate, right? I mean, that it doesn't sound like a lot, but that amount, the size of a
Extra
SIM in a
battery.
tray, they could do so much with that. I mean, that's always
Okay,
been the
yeah.
argument of phone technology is that every little millimeter makes a difference. Hence, some of their battery designs go like that. And so, looking at the phone, basically, I mean, I wrote a note to myself. So it has got crash detection, which is
Yeah.
brilliant because we talked about that in the watch. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have an Apple Watch, but you have an iPhone 14 or 14 Plus, you now get crash detection. So if your phone's sitting in a window mount, a mount on your dashboard or in the vent,
Cradle.
whatever, and you're unfortunately in a car crash, if the impact is enough, it will trigger the same emergency responses so that if you can't get to the device or the device has gone flying somewhere, and it activates speaker as well. So you could talk if someone, well, not if, when someone
Mm.
answers. So that's very cool. The other big thing about the phone is that it now has SOS via satellite.
Yeah.
That is
No,
innovative. There isn't
no,
another
well,
phone company in the world that can do that.
yeah. I mean, Elon Musk and T-Mobile a couple of days ago announced that they'd be coming to T-Mobile phones when Elon Musk launches the second generation Starlink. But that's all a couple of years down the track at the
Yeah.
earliest. So the catch with the satellite connectivity is that you've got to be standing and you see an interface. You'll see it
You've
on the
got to
video
like,
that's
yeah,
showing
look for
you,
it.
and
Yeah.
it can take some minutes to connect. But once it's connected, and you
Yeah.
can send text messages. Now the text messages are curated. I don't know if you
Yes,
can
that's
type
right.
your own manually, but but they're curated specifically for emergency situations so that they can get messages back to you. The service will be free for 2 years, and it's currently only available in the US and Canada. So when it'll come to Australia or other parts of the world, we don't know. So, but it is the beginning of being able to have all phones being able to connect to satellite networks, and they've got special chips inside that talk to
Yep.
satellites on those
Yeah.
frequencies. And it's cool that you can just hold it there, and it's telling you it might take a few minutes, but as soon as you get a connection, then bang, you can send the message. And the video showed people who were injured and
And
far
that's the
out. And
thing, though, right? Like
mm,
it's people mustn't go out and think now they can start making satellite phone calls. We're not there yet. It's the
mm,
start, but we're not there yet. But
yeah,
how often have you gone on a long distance trip, or and especially in a place like Australia, where we've got so many regional areas where you don't have coverage, And the worst thing that goes through your mind is like, what happens if I break down? What happens if
you
I
have to
run
wait
out
for
of
the
water?
next person to come along.
Correct. And people don't
If
exactly
you've gone
stop in
over a
this day and
cliff.
age either. Like they're not,
Yeah.
you know, people don't just go, oh, look, there's someone that's broken down. He looks nice. Let's see if we can help him. So, you know, this is a very, very important, and it's quite interesting how Apple's narrative is moving towards the outdoor, to extreme environments, you know, to places where we generally don't go or maybe are starting to go. And they're there. Now, you know, when people turn around and go, oh, there's nothing innovative or whatever, I challenge another cell phone company out there to put SATCOMs without an accessory into
Without a
their
sat
device
sleeve. Yeah.
without making it bigger.
Well,
That's the
and
key.
they will. They will.
They
Obviously, they're
will,
now
but they
going to be
haven't done
doing
it
this.
yet.
Yeah.
They need to buy
No.
one of these, break it down, and see what they've done.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was, to me, that was impressive. Would it be a reason to buy the phone? No, because I don't really go anywhere that's that rural that I'm going to be broken down without a cell phone signal.
But you know, I've gone from Canberra to Bateman's Bay or Canberra to the snow, and there are long stretches where it's just
yeah,
SOS. You've got to have podcasts downloaded, listen to the radio, and it can
okay,
be quite
yeah,
some
point
time. So
taken.
just even driving, you know, from one part of, I mean, you're in Queensland now, just driving from one part of, you know, wherever to somewhere else, you can find,
Yeah,
I mean, I was in the US and driving from one part of Los Angeles to, you know, another part on the freeways, and it said no service. I mean, I couldn't
yeah,
believe it. Here's a
yeah.
major freeway, at least in Australia, the major freeways, the major ones, all have, you know, 3G, 4G, and in the populated
It's
areas,
a
5G.
valid point. I mean, I agree with
Now,
you. That is,
one of the things that the iPhone 14 of all types didn't have, and I really thought they'd bring it this year in Australia, was 5G millimeter wave. So I checked. The US model has it. The Australian model still doesn't have it. Now, there's still not very much millimeter wave coverage in Australia. You'll find it at airports and in CBDs. And if
yeah.
you're there and you have a Google Pixel 6 Pro and you connect to it, yeah, you'll
I was
get,
going to
you
say,
know,
I've used it
up to
on
gigabit
my
speeds.
Google 6 Pixel Pro. I've seen it, and I've seen
Yeah.
the speeds.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, for the most part, Apple is just saving, you know, 200 million chips because they're going to sell 200 million or more of these phones. And,
Yeah.
you know, but they'll probably sell tens of millions in the US, and they've got the chips there, but they've got a much bigger rollout of 5G millimeter wave. So I really thought we'd see it this year. I thought we'd see it last year. I know people who were incredulous that we didn't have it with the iPhone 12 in Australia, but we just don't have it yet. So that's a shame. But, you know, that's just what the way it is. But one other thing that actually I remembered about the Apple Watch, one cool thing is that even going back to Series 5, with WatchOS 9, you will get international roaming at long last with your
Yes,
Apple
that's
Watch
right.
when you're
They
overseas.
did.
And that's
Correct.
something that Samsung and others had done. And I was wondering, well, what's so hard about it with Apple? And so it is good to see that they do bring some of the newer features back to older devices. And I can't remember if some form of crash. There was some other feature that went back as far as the iPhone, as the Apple Watch Series 4. So, you know, that they do bring some of the features back. And that's, of course, you know, usually a feature of the OS, be it iOS 16, which is coming next week. I downloaded the final, you know, the Golden Master version today on my iPhone. And I think there's a version from my watch. And, but yeah, I guess now we're going to talk about the iPhone 14 Pro Max.
So before we go into the Pro, you just mentioned iOS. I was incredibly disappointed that there was no reference to iOS on the show. That the new phone will have. I know that there's a problem with iPad OS and that they're delaying the launch of that, and they never. So maybe that's why they've decided they're not going to launch one without the other. I just that was missing for me because I like the software side of things as well. I like hearing you know, in Apple event-esque and their big glory and the big stage and all the production that they put together. That's where I like to see iOS. Like that's when it's just
everything
cool
they showed was
you know.
WatchOS 9 or iOS 16.
I
Like none
get
of
that.
that, like
But they didn't like make
and the
it
thing is,
a
Apple has a special
earlier in the
2 hour
year.
keynote,
Yeah.
WWDC, where they showed all of that.
Yeah.
And they showed
But the
the,
normal person doesn't watch that, Alex. They don't watch the WWCC, you know, DCs, but
well,
they
they
get to
should.
see these cool features. Yeah, but you see, you're a techie. But I'll leave that. I'll forgive them for that. Here's one question for you. Now, you can't be biased here because you do get the latest and greatest of Apple when it comes up for multiple reasons. I made a statement to someone just before we got into the show today because they phoned me and they said, "What do you think of this and this and that?" And they said, do I buy an iPhone 13 Pro or do I buy the new iPhone 14? I'm not talking about the Max or small, just phone for phone. And my answer was the 13 Pro because the price of the 13 Pro is going to come down a lot. The battery life and all these things are good. I would guess the camera is still better than the 14, even or maybe shared. Same processor, and it'll be cheaper. Would you disagree with that statement? I'm talking about from a value for money point of view and processing and as hardware.
Sure. Look, the iPhone 14 has the chip from the iPhone 13 Pro. The
Correct.
13 Pro had the A15 Bionic with an extra GPU core, whereas the 13 standard only had 4
And that's what's
GPUs.
gone into the 14.
So the 14 has got the more superior A15 from the Pro from last year, whereas
Correct.
the 14 Pro Max has the A16. Now, if your friend was going to buy a 13 Pro, then the price is not going to come down that much. I mean, the price of the price of the new 14s is pretty much the same as the prices from last year.
A year ago. Yeah. I saw that.
So Apple hasn't, they just like Samsung, they didn't raise the prices. And for Apple, they've got a fat margin that they work hard to be able to deserve and protect, but they deserve it, right? Every other manufacturer out there wishes they could have Apple's margins. They're on razor thin margins to try and fend off all the other providers. So Apple is able to not raise its prices. They'll probably raise them next year. But if your friend was going to buy a 13 Pro, then I would just say spend that same money. You're only going to save a couple $100, right? Don't get a 14, get a 14 Pro, or even better, the 14 Pro Max, because one of the things about the Pro is the new dynamic island, which we'll talk about.
Well, I'm going to get to that now. So let's bring the picture up while you're talking about that, because I did like that.
Sure.
That's what you're talking about there.
Yeah. Now, originally, people thought this would be like an exclamation mark with a longer thing on the left-hand side and a dot on the right-hand side. And then a few days ago, people said, well, hang on, the bit in the middle between the camera on the right and the sensors for Face ID on the left, that's going to be a spot where you'll see the dots for, microphone on and camera on. And it's like, oh, yeah, interesting. But Apple has done something far more interesting. So if you go to, again, youtube.com/Apple, or just go to Twitter, there's plenty of videos out there. This section is now called a dynamic island, and it will open up and close down. It's where you see notifications. It's where you see timers. It's where you see how many minutes left until your Lyft or your Uber ride.
That was quite cool. Yeah.
It's showing you the album art. Even though it's so tiny, you can actually have music playing and a timer going at the same time. So you can have more than one thing there. And it's actually an improvement into the iPhone interface. It's blurring the hardware and software. And, if your friend is going to spend
he was
$1,000.
asking about the 13 Pro versus the 14 standard, not 14
Well,
Pro.
I would just get the third. If your friend was considering the 13 Pro, the price of the 14 Pro is the same as the 13 Pro. And
not now, they'll subsidize it. The networks are going to want to clear them out, surely.
Well,
in the next 2 months, you'll probably find a 13 Pro will be $300-$400 less. It's
sure,
but money if you're not using all those top-end features.
But the thing is that, unless you're going to buy it outright, Telstra, Vodafone, I don't know about Optus, but I know Telstra has a 12-month, 24-month, and 36-month plan.
Yeah.
I pay the extra $15 a month to get the equivalent of Apple Care, 2 repairs a year. You can break the screen, you can damage it, and they'll just give you a refurb unit. And you can also upgrade to the newest model and give the old one back, or you can keep paying it out. But, these 36-month plans make it very affordable. And I just upgrade every year. I get my own phone and I buy the 1 terabyte model. Now, when your friend has to go into an Apple store and he's got to have a look at that dynamic island and the interface. That is only available on the 14 Pro and the Pro Max. The 14 still has the traditional notch. Now, the real value in the new model, it's like with the Apple Watch Ultra. The real exciting stuff is in the Pro. And if your friend doesn't want to get the 6.7 inch and he just wants the 6.1, well, it's the same. But that is going to change and improve the way that you use your phone. That is the big secret to iOS 16. That is something that only the Pros have. And once your friend sees it, he's going to want it. He's not going to want to stick with the older ones.
Well, right? Like, because again, I think I was expecting more. I don't know what I was expecting actually, but I was expecting more than
I
I
mean,
saw.
were you expecting a
I
folding
like the
screen? Were
dynamic.
you extra
No,
zooms or,
no, I knew the fold screen. That's years away.
Yeah.
The dynamic island I like. I was expecting that maybe in my head a camera under pixel so that it all disappears. And I'll tell you
You know,
where the
Samsung
problem
had
with this
that.
comes.
Samsung had that last year with the Fold 3.
Yeah,
And when you took photos with it, it didn't look good. And this year's Fold 4 has a better under pixel display. But and also with the Fold 3, you could see it. There was this gray
yeah.
patch. So it was under camera, but it was just
But
a
you know where
gimmick.
this
I
is going to
mean,
bug me? I was looking at it afterwards when I put the slides together for the show. I mean, obviously I didn't have a lot of time to prep for the show. We only saw this 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago. So I had like blank slides and I deleted a lot of slides because a lot of things didn't come that I was hoping to see. But when you turn the phone on its side and you're now watching Netflix or whatever, which I do regularly, if I'm on an airplane or whatever, I watch on my phone, right? I'm sitting there for an hour and a half. With the current notch, the screen ends below the black and there's extra black. This now sits in the middle of the content. And I don't know if
it's
that's going to bug you.
it's going to be the same. I mean, there'll just be a band over here
You can't
and a
see it
band
because
over there.
you're off camera.
Oh, sorry,
No,
but
yeah, but
it's a
that
little bit
band
lower.
there,
Yes, yeah,
that band there is where the movie ends, right?
yeah,
With the dynamic island being there, the movie bleeds past it.
Sure.
So
Well, the dynamic island is basically here. Look, let me share my screen if I can. I want to play the video.
cool.
I want to play the video of the dynamic. So let me just bring this up here. I'll click share. Let's watch the video of the dynamic. So I put my little face in there for the logo. Now, if we scroll down, there's a short video. You can go to Apple's website and see there's the full hour and a half. There's the introducing Watch Series 8. I mean, go and watch these things. Now, here's the dynamic island. Let's watch this. Can you hear the audio?
I can't yet.
Do I have to share audio somewhere when I'm sharing with you?
I'm not 100% sure, mate.
Well, hang on. Let me just go back to StreamYard. And Chrome has lost permission to share your screen. So unlock the screen by selecting unlock in the bottom left-hand corner. So
I've actually never done it this way.
Well, give me 1 second. I'm just going into system preferences. I've got to click the lock to put my fingerprint, and I go down to Google Chrome. And
I'll start singing while you're doing that.
I've got to. I have to quit and reopen. So let me just do that, and I'll rejoin the link. Okay.
Perfect. So I'll carry on while you're doing that. So while Alex is not here, and as I said, he's definitely the number one fan, I think, after today. So people have been phoning me and asking what I think. I don't know why I wasn't blown away. Maybe I was expecting bigger speeds from the phone. I did expect it to be the same shape. That I knew wasn't going to change. They put a lot of money and time and investment into the new flat look, and I like it. There's a new color. There's always a new color. I think it's called dark purple. It's like a metallic-y color. But I just think I was expecting something more. And it might have had to do with the notch. The fact that they've removed the notch and put this dynamic island, maybe it will grow on me. I'll only know once I start playing with mine when I get it. But it's just something that I keep leaning forward because I've got two screens. So I'm just trying to see when Alex comes back in. There he is. Let's leave him back in. So while you're away, I was just busy telling everyone how terrible Apple is, that you should never touch the device.
Okay. So let me go back to the StreamYard here, and let me go share. And I'm going to share screen. Now, best of the two monitors. Look for the share audio checkbox on the next window. So that's probably what I didn't tick on, although I don't see it there. Share tab audio is ticked. Okay, so let me click share, and let me scroll down. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, I'll bring it into the stream now. There we go.
Okay. So let me click play on this. Can you hear the audio?
Yes.
Okay, this goes for less than a minute.
You see, this is the part I was talking about. Look at Apple. Like, that's sexy. You know?
What's the move? Gonna wild out now. Catch me
It is nice when you look at it like that, right? Now watch the content when he turns it on its side. If he turns it on its side. I wasn't sure if it's on this one or... No, it won't be on this one.
Now,
So from an innovation point of view, right, it's great. And they're actually using real estate that's dead. So the notification, for what people would probably not know, maybe didn't pick up in that, you can even have two notifications going. You can have a countdown time on the one side and you can have a call icon on the other, and it changes. It's actually like the MacBook Pro touch bar to a way. You know, it uses a multi-function and it's got touch. Here's a question though. With that, what I call the dynamic island, I don't know where the name comes from, with dynamic island going the whole time and you touching, are we now not putting more fingerprints over our camera? So you know when you do a selfie and you get that blurry, like I'm terrible at that. Like I always pick my phone up out of my pocket from the back, so my fingers over the camera. And when I take a selfie or I jump on a video call, there's just this blurry, hazy thing. I go, well, hold on and give it the rub, and it's all good to go.
Yeah, Apple does sell a cleaning cloth, which I bought.
Yeah, but
$200, but you don't have to buy. You don't have to buy that one. Look,
I use my T-shirt.
The definitely putting your finger over the camera could do that, but that's just one spot.
Yeah, I know.
The dynamic island bar is quite large, and you know, I mean, if your friend wants to save money and doesn't want that dynamic island,
well,
I would say
this was a secondary purchase, right? This is not a primary.
Don't buy
device.
an iPhone 13. I would say go and buy a refurbished iPhone 11 or 12. You save a lot more money. Yeah. And now the refurb prices are going to have to come down because all these new 13s will be coming into the market. You know, don't buy a refurb today. Wait a month.
Oh no, this wouldn't be now. This is once it's out and launched and people got their hands on it. What I was impressed with.
Wait for Black Friday, because that's the only time of the year you're going to get a deal. That's less than 2 months away. If you want to get your iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max, then that's the time to get it.
Yeah, you actually
want to save money.
Advice from an outright. The power usage that they've now put into the new Bionic is brilliant. The fact that they can have a permanent on screen and drop it down so that it doesn't kill battery.
1 hertz, yeah.
And they mentioned 1 hertz refresh rate, that it can go all the way down to 1 hertz.
That's something I think they did already on the Apple Watch a couple of years ago. Yeah. And most of the on-screen, always-on displays from the competition is just a little tiny area. But Apple's is the entire display. And they showed that when you have a photograph of somebody on the screen, that it's not just dimming the whole thing so you can't see. It's actually still maintaining the skin tones and other features.
That was impressive. I have to say, that part did impress me. Alex,
and the screen is brighter as well, which is very important when you're in the hot summer.
2,000 nits, I think they said it can go up to.
If you're looking at photos and videos outside, whether this extra brightness is going to just be there for Safari, I don't know. Also, in the Australian summer, I noticed that when you have a pop socket on the back, you know, that if you're standing in the hot sun, that can cause the phone screen to start dimming more and more and more, which I hate. Because with OLEDs, they need to lower the temperature. And so, you know, you sometimes have to take this off to not have so much heat building up, and I've got to go into the shade. But that's a summer problem. That's a summer problem.
Well, I'm in Queensland, mate. We have summer problems up here.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of time. I need to wrap up the show. We did cover everything. There was nothing else that wasn't announced. I mean, there was some
Apple Fitness is now able to be used on iPhones if you don't have an Apple Watch.
That's right.
So that's another big thing.
Yeah, that is quite.
And iOS 16 will come next week, and I've been using it now for weeks. And I'd say personally it's safe enough, but if you really want to be sure, wait until at least 16.0.1, or to be really safe, wait until 0.1. But I've been using it now for a long time. I will not upgrade my Mac until I'll upgrade it straight away, but I won't put the beta on. But I'll put the beta on my phone.
Yeah, no, I'm still a creature of old habits. I wait till the 0.1. And I often talk about that. And it's not a good or bad, it's just a personal preference. But at 0.1, you are guaranteed that nothing's going to go wrong with it. Anything before that, maybe there's a very small, unlucky chance.
Yeah, well, I noticed that when I watch Foxtel and I put the screen sideways, the Foxtel window, it goes into the wrong direction. So there's a bunch of apps that will have to be fixed, and which will be rapidly fixed once it all.
I'll do it quickly. which also goes through
Yeah.
updateville, right? That's the other reason I don't do it so quickly, because you update
Yeah.
your apps and then you have to update your apps again because it's just
Yeah,
a knock on. So I let all that get done
Safe to
first.
wait.
And, yeah. As always, it's
Okay.
awesome to have you on. Thank you. ITY, senior editor and writer and contributor and everything, right? So we can find your articles at ITY. I saw you tweeting all through the morning as an early
Well,
hour.
eventually I stopped. I was just taking notes for the article I
There's
was going to
lots of
write,
content to
because you've
read
got to
there.
do two things at the same time. But a couple of people decided I was worth following. So you go.
Awesome. Well, congrats on that, mate. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. And
Okay.
I'll say thank you again, and
See
we'll
you
chat
next
to you
time.
soon. All
Well,
right.
October, when we have
Ah.
the new iPads. I was going to
That's
say
right.
October, new
One
iPads.
more
Max
event.
will talk then again. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Well, everyone, thank you. That was the Apple Far Out edition. I didn't get to, I said yes, I was going to do some of the normal things. I didn't get to do any of the other normal things. We geeked out. You can form your own opinions. As I said, not my favorite Apple event in the last few years. Not the worst. I do love the watch, so well done to the team for Apple Watch Ultra. And that's it. So until next time, keep your screens clean and your knobs shining.